How's that? Good morning. It is 9:03, and I, for a second time, declare the Performance Audit and Risk Committee open and welcome members and the public. So first, we'll just start with any apologies. I don't have any, but I note that Councillor Holding isn't here yet, so we'll just pause on that. We'll move on now to any declarations of interest. And if there are none, we'll progress on to agenda item 3, confirmation of previous minutes. Before we speak to the previous minutes, I would just like to ask whether any members of the Performance Audit Risk Committee wish to speak to the public excluded minutes, which are currently in agenda item 6. There was a brief discussion in there on trade, on debtors and creditors, but very, very little content to discuss. So does anybody have a problem if we don't go into public excluded? No. So could I please ask somebody to pass the motion that we amend agenda item 3.1 to approve both the public and public excluded minutes? Moved by Councillor McCone. Sorry?
With amendments as agreed.
With amendments as agreed, yes, thank you. Seconded by Mayor Kircher. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, that's carried. So we'll now move on to agenda item 3, confirmation of the previous minutes. Aside from those discussions that we've had just outside of here, are there any amendments that anybody would like to make to the minutes? Nope. Can I ask for somebody to please move that we accept both the public and public excluded minutes then? Moved by Deputy Mayor Halale, seconded by Councillor Ryan. All those in favour? Against? Thank you again, and that's carried. We can now move on to agenda item 4, and it is the only agenda item that we have on the PAR meeting today. So it should be a brief one, but I'll hand over to Amanda now to speak to the financial statement, or matter supported by Paul, and then open it up for discussion. Amanda.
Okay, so this is the financial results to 30 April 2025. I usually say similar story to last time, and at that point in time it was a similar story, but there have been a few updates in the last month. So looking at the picture in front of us here, there was a $7.9 million deficit against a planned sort of break-even level. This was due to lower grant income revenue, largely the Network Waitaki Sports and Event Centre, and I've discussed there a wee bit about the how the payments plan was happening from the trust, how we were receiving 50% of the costs, their contribution. Since that time, that's now been adjusted as well. We expect to receive the full funding from the trust going forward, so we hope that that will be righted by 30 June. So we'll probably still be behind in terms of revenue, but we expect that we'll receive a bit more income from the Sports and Event Centre Trust. The finance revenue is behind budget because of the significant repayment by Observatory Village back in February. So that's still going to be the case at 30 June. In terms of expenditure, we had the high revaluation increase for Three Waters at 30 June 2024. So that's contributed to an increase in depreciation throughout this entire year. That's still going to be the case at 30 June. Personnel costs are over budget. We've previously discussed. That's still going to be a similar picture at 30 June. And project reclaim, there was timing variances between the cost of the project in the 24 and 25 financial year against budget. Positive to note there that the levy has been waived. So yeah, in terms of the 30 June result, I've previously said we're probably forecasting around $7 million deficit. We're looking, there's a few good news stories this month, and hope to tell you a bit more next month, but it's probably not going to be as bad as that at 30 June. In terms of the balance sheet, obviously the repayment of Observatory Village has decreased our assets, our investments there, but the other side to that was it was used to repay debt, so the debt balance is much lower. Our capital expenditure is a bit behind budget, and there was a significant portion of our 25 budgeted capital expenditure has been deferred to future years. But offsetting that is lower debt than we forecast as well. So as I previously said, we're expecting the debt balance to be around 70 mil at 30 June 25, against the budget of 99 million in the 25 annual plan.
Thank you. And so that difference of around 30 million in the debt is really just a combination of Observatory Village paying back early and then those deferred CapEx projects that we're not looking at doing until later.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, look, thank you, Amanda. I'll open the floor. I just would like to note too, also just the great news that you touched on around the ETS levy being fully waived as part of Project Reclaim. So whilst that's not something that we, as you mentioned in the notes, it's not something that we actually budgeted on spending because it was such a wrong charge in the first place. It's great to know that it's also not something that we're going to have to build in now. Thank you. So I'll open the floor up for questions or comments. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned the ETS levy because I was going to ask a question about that, and I have one other question referencing a topic I discussed previously. But looking at the levy, what the report says to us on page 14 is that this was never physically paid or accrued, so it will not be returned and does not improve the financial results. Yet my recollection when I read that was we had been told that potential cost had been built into some of the estimates, some of the figures that we had been given, and the public have picked up and banged us over the head with regard to Project Reclaim generally. So is it a figure that we have at any stage incorporated in, is the quantum of the ETS levy a figure that we've incorporated in any public communications as to the total cost of Project Reclaim? And if that is the case, if we have said in the past it could be something we have to spend, surely we're entitled now to say it is something we don't have to spend.
Roger, do you want to speak to that?
As in response to Councillor Hopkins's question, well, you're quite right. It is something that we thought we might have to spend, and now we don't have to spend. But my understanding is that we never actually made a financial provision for it because deep down we never really thought that we would have to spend it. But we have made reference to it in various reports that it is a potential and a risk that we might have to find it if we didn't get that waiver.
Well, just for clarity then, it's never been part of any figure that we've made public or presented at meetings such as this in relation to the anticipated cost of Project Reclaim.
Sorry. Look, yeah. I mean, in some of the reports that were considered, I think we talked up, the potential maximum cost of Project Reclaim could have been up to $18 million. So that was where we talked about if every cost that had been identified was actually came to fruition, the total cost would have been significantly higher than we allowed for. But we came up with what we thought was a rational budget based on some assumptions. But that was like the worst case scenario. So that's where it's been talked about. It wasn't included in the budget. It wasn't, in the annual plan and things like that, because we thought, we should have put in our best estimate, not the worst case scenario.
So it was never on the books, but it was always something that was considered if worst case scenario. And I guess with regard to your question about the description of it below, so the levy would have been something that we would have had to pay. We got an exemption, which meant that we didn't have to pay it. So our levy reduced, I think, to 1 carbon credit because you needed to have a unit to be able to close out the account. So it cost us $55 or thereabouts to close the account out and effectively get rid of that levy that never should have been. Did you have some further questions, Councillor?
Well, yeah, look, I'm sorry. Apologies. I know you've made reference in the past to the fact that I've discussed this matter more than once, but I think this committee or the council or local government more generally really needs to have a very comprehensive strategic think about depreciation. Because here we have depreciation is over budget by 2.2 million, largely as a result of the larger than expected revaluation of water infrastructure. Last year it was roads. These things are going on all the time. And in my view, they're going to put smaller councils like ours out of business eventually, because raising in costs will be unsustainable. So I don't profess to have an instant magic wand answer, but I do think that we collectively and as an individual council impacted negatively by this, need to start thinking really strategically about how we deal with this matter in the future, because to my mind, it has the capacity to effectively put us out of business over time.
Amanda, Paul, do you want to speak to that?
I guess accountants could argue the other way. The whole point of depreciation is making sure that you're putting aside those costs over the life of the assets. So if we didn't have depreciation on the books at all, and then you get to the end of the useful life, costs have skyrocketed like crazy in the last 5 years for water, like up 36% type thing. And so like when you get to the point where you need to replace the asset and you haven't put those funds aside, then you are going to be bankrupt. So the whole point of depreciation is to spread that cost over the life of the asset. And so the fact that it's gone up just reflects the true cost in building those assets. The valuation of those waters assets going up 105 million at 30 June 24 represents the cost to build those assets now, the fair value of it.
I guess,
So it's spreading the cost.
That's to me, that's kind of the problem is more the fact that the assets are of such significant value